Today on Hearts of Heroes, a dirt biker crashes down a 150-foot Utah canyon.
He went to put his foot down next to the cliff ledge here, and he just tumbled off of the edge.
It was just a sheer, straight cliff, so I just tumbled and rolled until I stopped at the bottom.
As we got closer and closer, we were preparing for the absolute worst.
Do we got oxygen up there?
Plus, a very special reunion with a Hearts of Heroes favorite.
I have a little surprise for you.
What?
Alonzo! Oh! Heroes can often emerge when we least expect them.
Experienced off-roaders know that the key to surviving a crash is always wearing your protective gear, especially if you're hitting up extra rugged terrain.
But no matter how prepared you are, accidents do still happen. Luckily, there are highly trained teams of medics, rope rescuers, and helicopter pilots ready for any kind of emergency.
Warner Valley in southwest Utah features breathtaking deserts and red rock canyons as far as the eye can see.
We're kind of a high desert. We go from a desert climate clear to 10,000-foot peak. Lots of cliffs, lots of rock. We live in about the most beautiful place in the world, but it's a very harsh terrain.
Eric Tunbridge and his family live in St. George, Utah.
It's a great place to raise a family. Incredible outdoor environment. Big outdoors person, so I like that a lot.
Eric's very adventurous. He loves to ride his dirt bike. He has no fear.
In February of 2023, Eric and a friend loaded up their bikes to go riding in Warner Valley.
The morning of the ride, we decided to go to one of our favorite trails that we go on regularly, and it's got quite a few technical areas in it.
About an hour and a half into the ride, Eric and his friend ended up on top of a narrow canyon trail.
There's only about 2 or 3 spots along this trail that gets directly right up to the edge. I mean, it's a matter of inches away from the edge of the cliff. It's a thrill. It's an adrenaline rush to get right out there.
Suddenly, things went from thrilling to terrifying.
He went to put his foot down next to the cliff ledge here, and there was nothing under his foot, basically. So because of that, he just tumbled off of the edge.
There was about a 60-foot fall off just a sheer, straight cliff, and then it was about another 100 feet down on what they call a scree. It's a really steep slope on the edge of the cliff. So I just tumbled and rolled until I stopped at the bottom.
Eric's friend had seen him fall, but there was no way for him to climb down the cliff. He had to find some other way to get to Eric.
He had to go about 10 to 15-minute ride before he was able to make it down to where I was. But then at the very bottom, he had to climb up that scree, so he had to hike up to where I was at.
Eric was injured really badly and needed to be rescued right away, but they had no cell service. Coming up, rescuers will stop at nothing to save Eric's life.
We were scrambling over large boulders. We were climbing up a literal cliff face.
This is not a great terrain.
But first, a tip for all the bike enthusiasts out there.
Whether you're an expert or a beginner, bike safety attire is essential.
Wearing a helmet, reflective bands, and long pants can greatly reduce the risk of lasting and traumatic injuries should you fall. Also, be sure to carry identification and medical ID card just in case you're involved in an accident.
The numbers don't lie. If you wear a helmet, your risk of a head injury is reduced by nearly 70%. Bottom line, always wear the proper gear when you decide to ride.
After a morning of dirt biking, Eric Tunbridge and his friend were almost at the end of the trail when suddenly he tumbled 150 feet off the edge of a cliff. He was badly injured, but neither Eric nor his friend had cell phone service to call for help.
Luckily, Eric's phone was equipped with a satellite SOS system that alerted first responders of the accident.
There is a bike crash and somebody possibly fell off a cliff. We'll get medical in right now.
Our high angle and EMS teams and my east ground team respond to it.
Motorcycle crash, possibly fell off the cliff. You see the cliffs right there?
And at that point, search and rescue got called, life flight got called.
Life flight helicopters carry cutting-edge medical equipment that can be flown directly to a person trapped in a remote area.
From the time we got the call to the time we were overhead was less than 15 minutes. And as we arrived, I saw two gentlemen on the side of a scree-type mount with a pretty big cliff up above them.
He's alive. He's right here.
As we got closer and closer and really saw how far he fell, we were preparing for the absolute worst.
With the cliff being up above, I didn't think the medical crew would be able to get down to the victim. So we opted to land below the victim. The crew had to hike up this scree hill, maybe a quarter of a mile from where we landed.
Landing below meant that we had to pack all of our equipment and medical supplies up a pretty rocky cliff face.
Back at Eric's home, his wife, Tasha, had also seen the SOS alert on her phone.
I tried calling him. He didn't have cell phone service.
All Tasha could do was wait and hope to hear something. Meanwhile, the life flight crew made their trek up the side of the cliff. Just getting up to Eric was a challenge in itself.
We were climbing up a literal cliff face.
At the same time, additional agencies began to respond, including the specialized high-angle rescue team.
I remember looking up the cliff and seeing how far he'd fallen and just being totally shocked that he was still alive.
As EMTs and high-angle rescuers made the trek up the cliff, the life flight crew began treating Eric.
Eric, deep breath. Try not to move it next as much as possible.
Immediately, we tried to do spinal immobilization. We give blood because having a low blood pressure and not enough blood volume is going to kill you.
The life flight crew were doing everything they could to get Eric stabilized. Now, the high-angle crew had to figure out a way to get him down the mountain.
This is not a great terrain.
We were concerned that maybe he could deteriorate because nobody just falls off a cliff and lives to tell the tale very often. And so knowing that he had a head injury, we were suspecting some other problems internally.
Those problems included a collapsed lung. So first responders decided to fill the lung by performing a needle decompression through his chest. Now it was time to try to bring the stabilized but highly fragile patient off the mountain.
Guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna pass down.
Yep, got the head. Okay, I got it. Coming behind you.
Dirt sliding down off the hill, just trying to get your footing and trying to keep him safe too.
There were actually several times on the way down the mountain that he stopped breathing.
We got oxygen up there.
Rescuers used a device called a bag valve mask to pump air into Eric's lungs as they navigated their way down the cliff.
All right, going down.
It took the combined effort of many different agencies and a lot of strong guys to carry him safely down the mountain.
Drop right here, we'll pass.
Most of our job, you guys, so much. You're at the helicopter, okay?
1, 2, 3.
These first responders put their own lives at risk to get Eric to the hospital. Now it was time to let the team of doctors at St. George Regional take over.
With Eric, we spent a lot of time with him. We've put a lot of effort into getting him off the side of this mountain, and then we take him to the hospital, and now the doctors get to do everything there.
We kind of say goodbye, which is rough because you care so much and you're invested so much in that person and you want to know that they're going to be okay.
By now, Eric's riding buddy was able to make contact with his wife and children.
He informed me that he'd been in an accident and that I needed to get to the ER immediately, that it was probably really bad. I wasn't sure if he was okay, if he was paralyzed, if he was not going to make it.
Coming up, Eric faces an uphill battle.
Most every day in the hospital, we were finding new injuries.
Eric Tunbridge had survived an almost deadly fall down a rocky cliff.
Guys ready? 1, 2, 3.
After a 90-minute trek down the side of the mountain, he was taken to the ICU. No one was sure just how serious his injuries were or if he would even survive.
We didn't have definitive answers on what all of his injuries were. So when I first got there, my biggest concern, aside from him living, is if he could feel his feet. They did a bunch of MRIs and scans on him, and they told me that throughout this they would find the lesser traumatic injuries. So I would say almost every day in the hospital we were finding new injuries.
I kind of didn't really feel any pain, but I couldn't really move. I realized really quickly that there was probably some more serious damage. I severed my ACL and tore my meniscus. I had collapsed lung and a few broken ribs. And then I fractured my wrist pretty bad. They had to put metal plates in my left wrist.
Even though Eric was wearing a helmet, he still suffered a traumatic brain injury.
I wasn't able to recall information, short-term memory. They would give me different types of tests that they would ask me to remember words or to do simple math problems, and I couldn't do it.
Incredibly, there was no permanent brain trauma from the accident. Without question, Eric's survival and recovery were thanks to his helmet and protective gear.
One of the biggest learning lessons, obviously, was being prepared. Every time we go out riding, we know that there's an inherent risk, and we accept that risk. But honestly, I don't think that I would be here today if I didn't have the right safety protective gear on me, in addition to the Lifeline crew and the first responders.
On this day, Eric and his family had the honor of thanking them personally. Sheldon Yellen of our sponsor, Belfour Property Restoration, arranged for them to meet for the first time since the accident.
Eric, how do you feel?
I feel great.
Here we are today with so many wonderful people who came together to help rescue and save your life. What would you like to say to them?
Just thank you, man. It's just amazing to be here with you guys, and I'm super excited and super humbled by, all the sacrifice that you guys give to help save people, and my family. From all of us, we say thanks.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you guys were able to save my dad, because I love dirt biking with him, and I'm glad I get to still dirt bike with him. So I'm just happy that he's alive.
I'm incredibly grateful. Because of you, he's standing here and we're together as a family because you guys were willing to go out and help him. So, thank you.
Let's have some great days ahead, and let's go thank some of these wonderful people over here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice to meet you guys. Put some faces. Nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, glad you're all right.
Yeah, thank you.
What an amazing sight to see. So many agencies coming together, so many people pulling together, standing in the presence of the guy they rescued, all together again, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. It's a wonderful end to a story.
Just having that opportunity to take some time out of my life and come to them and say, hey, what you've done has just had an incredible impact on my life, and I'm so grateful.
I was a lot more emotional than I thought I would be. But your sense of gratitude is so big. Saying thank you doesn't feel adequate, because if they wouldn't have been there, Eric wouldn't have survived. He wouldn't be with us today.
Coming up, a special follow-up reunion with one of the feistiest Miami Heat basketball fans alive.
I love watching the Heat. I don't watch any other thing on television.
But first, a tip to keep all of you safe should you plan to venture out and take in the great outdoors.
A solo hike can often provide a much-needed getaway from our busy lives, but you never know what can happen when you set off into the great outdoors.
Always tell a friend or family member your projected route and destination, and be sure to include your expected return time. Sharing your plan ensures that someone will be on standby while you're on your journey.
Your most reliable tool is preparedness. Remember to make a plan and let someone know before you go.
For you true fans of Hearts of Heroes, you might remember when we told you the incredible story of a feisty 102-year-old woman living in Boca Raton.
My home is important. Everything I have here is mine. They can't take it away from me.
Thelma shares a very close relationship with her in-home caregiver, Primrose Allen.
I work with Thelma for 8 years. I am so connected to her.
Primrose. Well, without her, I wouldn't be here. She's wonderful.
There's one other thing you should know about Thelma. She's a die-hard Miami Heat basketball fan.
I love watching the Heat. I don't watch any other thing on television.
In 2019, a fire broke out in the bathroom of Thelma's home.
I see the fire dropping down and the towels caught fire. I rushed back and grabbed the wheelchair, and then I flung her in the wheelchair.
Thanks to Primrose's quick actions, the two women made it out safely. Thelma's irrepressible spirit made quite an impact on our team at Hearts of Heroes. So, Sheldon Yellen of our sponsor, Belfour Property Restoration, decided to pay her another personal visit.
Get in here!
Thelma, how are you?
Great.
Great. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah.
What do you have there?
I'm Hark #1.
Look at that. There we go. The Miami Heat #1 fan, right?
Yes, that's what I am.
And that's why I'm back here. I was so moved by your story last time that I had to come back and see how you were doing and how Primrose is doing, to see how your Miami Heat are doing. How are they doing?
Maybe tonight they'll do well.
Oh, there she is. How are you?
I'm doing good, Sheldon.
Great,
How are you?
Great.
Thelma, Primrose, and Sheldon took a few moments to catch up before Sheldon surprised the two with this computer so that they could watch their incredible story together. In November of 2019, 102-year-old Thelma Hark's home was on the verge of being destroyed by fire. With the bathroom engulfed in smoke, caregiver Primrose Allen rushed Thelma to safety.
She saved my life.
Thelma was safe. When Sheldon Yellen of Belfour heard Thelma's story, he wanted to surprise this superfan and her lifesaver.
Thelma, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Great.
So he reached out to Hall of Famer and Heat superstar Alonzo Mourning.
Nice guy.
He's a great guy. I have a little surprise for you.
What?
Alonzo!
Thelma, how you doing?
How are you?
How are you?
I'm fine. I saw you on television the other night.
Did you really?
Yeah.
There's your friend.
Thelma, first of all, I want to thank you so much on behalf of the Miami Heat for being the oldest, our #1 fan
Oh, I guess so.
of Heat Nation.
The oldest. I guess so. I ought to be the oldest.
Most important was #1 fan.
So, first of all, you're my hero for saving her.
Yes.
That's you, Primrose.
Thank you.
Primrose, you know this ball is for you. You know I'm a hugger. Oh, there we go. Oh.
Look at that, Thelma. How many people got a hug from Alonzo Mourning?
It was a thrill to meet him, because he's a great athlete, and I admire that. Because I'll tell you, I'm a lousy athlete.
She loves me and I love her. And because of that, I dedicate myself to her, the best of my ability. I will stay with her to the end. I will take care of her until death do part.
How beautiful is that?
I have to change my will.
And who is gonna get it?
You.
Well, Thelma, I just want you to know we're so happy to be back with you and Primrose. Again, I'd just like to say to you, both of your stories are so moving, so inspirational. Until we meet again,
Yeah.
you take care of yourself, okay?
You too.
Primrose, it's great to see you again, as always.
Great to see you, baby.
Being able to show Thelma and Primrose that clip of her on Hearts of Heroes, watching her expressions, watching her reaction to seeing herself on TV, and then hear from us how inspirational she was to so many viewers across the country, what a great time it was for us today to experience that with Thelma and with Primrose.
We are so honored to be able to celebrate all of these heroes who show us what it really means to have a love of life and a true fighting spirit.
And of course, to the first responders who put their lives on the line each and every day to protect the communities they serve, we thank you. We'll see you next time on Hearts of Heroes.
Thanks so much for watching.